Jason, you come from California, which has traditionally set standards that the rest of the country has often followed regarding environmental regulations and things like that. So, can you just give me a couple of quick thoughts on the environment in the context of this election?
California has set those standards. And the nation does follow eventually. And I think that they're going to have to do the same very soon. California has a Republican governor, as we all know, as Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is not always very popular because of some of the positions he's taken, but on the environment and energy as two major issues that do go together, he has done something that I'm hoping the nation will follow along with very quickly.
Do you think people are more open to hearing about the environment this election cycle, especially given that energy and the environment seem to be almost a dual issue?
I do, because they are a dual issue. People look at energy as an economic issue too, and because of that, that's where it has more legitimacy.
Energy is not only an environmental issue, it's not only an economic issue, it's a foreign policy issue. Would we need to get involved so heavily into Middle East and South Asia politics if we weren't so dependent on foreign energy? No. Instead of, I call this the Kobayashi Maru syndrome. The Kobayashi Maru is this from the Star Trek movie, right? Captain Kirk was faced with the no-win situation. Either save the ship or the Klingons come in and blow him up. But what did he do? Instead of playing by the rules of the game, he broke into the computer, changed the dynamic of the rules for the game, and made it a winnable situation. So we changed the rules. I heard somebody say once, where's the largest oil reserves in the United States? Anybody know where that is? Detroit, Michigan.
Really?
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Cafe standards. All we got to do is raise the corporate auto fuel economy standards of the fleets of vehicles that are being designed and built in Detroit and in the rest of the country from the stagnant low 20s where it's been for over 30 years. And start making cars that are more fuel efficient.
When you say cafe standards, you mean 20 miles per gallon?
That's ridiculous. In this day and age where a car can get 3 times that, let's subsidize clean diesel. Let's make cars that just aren't allowed to get less than a certain number.
Let's switch to education for a second. Nicole, both campaigns in this election cycle are talking about the need to make our public education system better. There's some question as to how No Child Left Behind has worked on the ground, whether it has worked, whether it hasn't. Which party, which ticket do you think has more credibility on the education issue? Do you think that vouchers are the answer for some families who need access to private schools but can't? Because I know here in D.C., a lot of inner city parents were clamoring for vouchers at one point in direct opposition to the public education lobby. I know that Michelle Rhee, who is the new chancellor under Adrian Fenty, is trying to actually reform the public education system in D.C. with a lot of resistance from the teachers' unions, a traditional Democratic constituency.
I think that we have a tendency to want quick, short-term solutions. I think the problem with public education in this country is going to take more than one-shot type of solutions. I think that we really need to, again, I think it's a cultural thing. I think that we have not given education the value that it should have. The fact that we don't pay teachers for what the work that they're doing is a huge problem. So I don't know if just something like a voucher is the answer. I think that it really needs to be revamped. I don't know which party or which candidate has a better handle on the situation, though, I have to be honest.
Just to follow up on this, in my book, Democrats in the Red Zone, I have a chapter called Public Education, Time for a New Textbook. And in that chapter, I cite Constance Rice, who is Condoleezza Rice's cousin, who works with gang members and works with people in housing projects out in LA, and she appeared on a book festival in Los Angeles a couple of years ago, and they were talking about public education, and she said The dirty little secret of public education is that it works for children of families like yours and mine, but it doesn't work for the kids in the Jordan Downs housing project or the poor rural white kids that she works with. And my personal view on this is that the Democrats have a credibility problem with public education. There's a reason that homeschooling trends are going upwards. There's a reason that people want vouchers, even though the Democrats are afraid that it's going to lead to more religious education. I can tell you, I know a lot of people who were raised going to Catholic school. They hated it, but you know what? They came out with a good, solid education.
There is a major problem on the Democratic side with unions. They basically have the right to speak at the convention, which I thought was inappropriate. I don't think you should have the head of the AFL-CIO talking at the Democratic convention. I think it shows you that they're in our pocket, or rather that we're in their pocket. No Child Left Behind has not been a complete failure, but it has failed schools because of the long-term goals of what No Child Left Behind had. Their overall goal was to privatize public schools. All right, it was to set a standard, but also they wanted a very basic standard for all schools nationwide in every state, and you can't do that in many communities.